Good morning, President. Today, we'll be presenting about the road to anti-corruption that Myanmar can adopt. Corruption is a major obstruction to political, economic, and social development in both rich and poor countries. It presents a collective problem for states, especially when the population feels left out of the country's development. Corruption cases have disposed ruling parties in countries such as Brazil, Italy, and Indonesia. For poorer countries such as Myanmar, corruption has an even deeper impact. According to Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index in 2012, Myanmar ranks 172 out of 176 countries. Corruption will not only derail Myanmar from its current development, but also deplete resources required to raise the people and children of Myanmar out of poverty and towards a better standard of living. In this presentation, we will look at the cause and consequences of corruption, as well as tools that have been implemented by other countries to reduce opportunities for corruption and enhance the ability of people and organizations to combat it. On the political front, corruption is due to weaknesses in legal, bureaucratic, and institutional systems. Inconsistent and incomplete laws and discriminatory enforcement means that corruption cases can go unpunished. Bureaucratic systems with excessive red tapes, together with lack of accountability and low salary of officials, increases the chances that public officials will be offered bribes by people seeking for shortcuts. Vote buying by politicians and weak civil liberties further slants institutions towards corruption. Economically, businesses want to increase their ability to extract economic rent or profits through bribing key officials to limit competition in the market, making it difficult for new businesses to enter. Businesses also see bribery as a way to circumvent the system against high taxes and lost time in doing business. The consequences of corruption have great impact on the country's growth and performance. An unhealthy business environment is created due to distorted competition, which discourages investment and stifles entrepreneurship. Valuable resources are wasted and fiscal system undermined. Recently, 5 major directors of the state-owned China National Petroleum Corporation (CNPC) were investigated on charges of corruption. Most Chinese people view CNPC as a monopoly has controlled the increasing prices of petroleum. They have also received large amounts of subsidy from the government that could have been used for social development, such as healthcare and education. We can also see the political effect of corruption in China. The previous Chongqing Municipal Party Secretary Guo Xilai is accused of distorting policies and the judicial system in Chongqing. This damaged not only the trust between the government and the people, but also the state's reputation and status. Corruption impedes social development when corrupt officials invest in projects that will benefit themselves rather than communities. So basic amenities such as schools, hospitals, and roads are neglected. People are then deprived of opportunities and social mobility is affected. At a more serious level, people who feel oppressed and disadvantaged greatly by corruption may protest publicly and conflicts and social unrest may break out. Should this happen in Myanmar, this will put to waste all the work done by the government to improve the economy and, more importantly, destroy the current development opportunities. Hence, it is important for the Myanmar government to act resolutely against corruption. To combat corruption, governmental level action is key to reduce the likelihood that government officials will be tempted. This can be done through 5 main areas of action. Preventive actions are taken to address weaknesses in the system that promotes corruption. This includes declaration of conflict of interest by state officials of their relationships and involvements with external parties, especially during tendering process. Increasing awareness of the unethical behavior of corruption and severe consequences can be through public moral education, as well as education within the government agencies. The low income of government employees make it tempting for them to supplement their income through bribes, so higher salaries and better staff welfare will make bribery less attractive. Effective and independent legislation is a vital organ of state in fighting corruption. Streamlining of laws and regulations strengthens the legislative power of the legal system to prosecute corrupted officials. shorter prosecution time and tougher penalties also signal the seriousness of the government to combat corruption. The government can consider publishing names and details of corruption cases as a warning for the rest. The government of Myanmar needs to review processes of government administration, which allows the public to have an easier and shorter time in their transactions with the government agencies and increases the transparency and accounting of the system. Supervision against corruption must also be present. Independent and consistent authorities who guard the principles of checks and balances aids in this supervision. Examples include Independent Commission Against Corruption in Hong Kong and Singapore's Auditors General's Office, which audits and identifies the areas of weaknesses in the public sector impartially. Media freedom should also be granted as they act as watchdogs against corruption. As the saying goes, power corrupts, and unfortunately, experiences have shown that top government officials are the most susceptible to corruption. Hence, it's important that the executive branch of the government act as role models in the fight against corruption, such as income and asset declaration, which will highlight cases of excess wealth of an individual government official. However, the fight against corruption will also need to involve partnerships with the private sector and NGOs. Companies are starting to recognize the high monetary cost of corruption and damage to their image that they have started to take voluntary steps to combat corruption from within. Similar to government initiatives to implement preventive actions, companies do so through standards and codes of conduct and ethics, with education and independent compliance investigation parties. This strengthens employees' awareness of the anti-corruption stance of the company. Many businesses engage in corruption to feed into the business culture of the country they do business in. Companies will have to decide whether they will opt for the illegal short way or the legal long way. Some companies have accepted that a longer time is required to process certain government approvals or even reward their employees when they lose a bid due to bribery by competitors. The use of information technology has also helped companies to conduct businesses through e-platforms with clearer records. There is a trend for companies working together and engaging civil societies such as NGOs to fight against corruption and have a more level playing field for all. Organizations such as Transparency International has been publishing Corruption Perception Index to increase public awareness. Other NGOs have also worked similarly to educate the people to demand accountability from their leaders through their right of information. NGOs also combat corruption by collecting and releasing information of corruption cases. Fair Play Alliance has built a database of corruption cases, and they work with media groups and bloggers to feed public debate, forcing governments to respond and disclosures by companies on their financial reports. Founded by a group of CEOs in 2004, the Partnering Against Corruption Initiative, PACI, is a global platform initiated under the World Economic Forum, allowing companies and business leaders to maximize their collective impact in the fight against corruption. PACI has been increasing efforts to foster high-level dialogue between business and governments. As such, there's much that can be done to combat corruption. It's important that Myanmar fight corruption and move towards a state where corruption will not cripple the government, politics, business, civil society, and the daily lives of people. The people and children of Myanmar will then be able to enjoy a brighter future and not see the same scene in this video 10 years down the road.
Perpustakaannya luas, banyak bacaannya, ber-AC lagi. Tapi kok korupsi, masalah